you know, lovingly, but being cooped up in Manhattan with this is awful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's hard to say
Yeah.
no. It's hard to say no.
Yeah. I hear you. So I won't get. I'll tell you about my. Should we get started, Ashley, or?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started,
Oh,
and people can join in the activities as we're going along. Yeah,
okay.
so for those of you who just joined in the last couple of minutes, I put a link in the chat to a Google Doc or to a Google Sheets. And so if you'll just go in and fill in your information for the columns A, B, and C, we'll be using that later in the presentation. And yeah, and so I just want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. Let me just make sure that I have the correct view. Here we go. So today's webinar is an introduction to working with and interpreting data and motivating and empowering you to jump right into the Hudson Data Jam competition. So while we're getting settled, in addition to this activity, I also would love to learn a little bit more about you. And so in the chat, I'd like you to share, are you an educator, parent, caregiver? How are you getting involved with Data Jam? The grade level of students you'll be working with, and have you done Data Jam before?
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear that as well. That'd be helpful for me to kind of cater to, how I talk about my experience with Data Jam. Anyway, it's really nice to see everyone. My name's Miriam Strauss, and I have been involved as a teacher with Data Jam since it started. And it's just been an amazing experience for me overall as an educator in terms of growth, personal growth, and just seeing how the kids really grow and evolve from this experience. It's really it's been great. It's a lot of work, but it's great. So, and I guess the challenge really is, how do you do that through I don't know how. I actually would love to hear if you're teaching virtually or if you're teaching in the classroom, because obviously that's going to be a little bit different depending on how I address this as well. I am actually right now your high school teacher, May mostly 12th. Oh, okay. This is great information. So I am a middle school teacher, but I have worked with both middle school and high school doing Data Jam. So I can I know the whole range. And I worked in a small school, so that's why I was able to get away with that. Right now, I am in Berkeley, California as a middle school teacher. And so actually, you're going to be upset with me, but I could put on my t-shirt and shorts. It's a warm day. It's like in the 70s. And I get out every day. And I'm feeling your cabin fever. So I mean, even though I'm not experiencing, I know that feeling, having been there. Oh, Amelia, hi. So okay, so Amelia is now at the school I used to teach at. So I was the middle school teacher there, and I worked with many students. So Amelia, we should talk. So because you might have some of the same students. Anyway, so I just want to make sure that I'm not being dumbing down or dumbing up. You just please give me feedback so I know. I want to make sure that I'm gauging this correctly. I can't read your minds, and obviously we're all over the map. So please feel free to say something to me. And then Ashley, if you could, as I get carried away, I won't be able to see the chat. So
yeah, I'll chime in when there's questions.
Great. Okay. So you can see the goals. We're going to just try to appreciate data. Oh my goodness. I had no clue it's 7 years ago. So just appreciating it. How do you analyze it? Take away some graphing skills on how to kind of get started with kind of that, just jumping in with students with graphing. and looking at data, and then obviously how that connects with Data Jam in an authentic way. And that's what makes it so, I think, an amazing experience if you end up getting involved with Data Jam. It's a real thing. Kids they feel the pain and they feel the growth, and it's just a really, I'm telling you, it's a very powerful program to be involved with. So yeah, so I did so what I did was, I didn't know how many of you are doing Pear Deck. Any of you? If you could raise your hands. I don't have to do this. I just did it because I thought maybe some of you would want to experience it, but we don't have to. And actually, I asked the same questions Ashley just did, which was what you teach. And I see we're getting it in the chat. So I think I'm gonna not do the Pear Deck unless I'm hearing a like, let's do the Pear Deck. So, which was, my question was sharing about yourselves, and I had a multiple choice, which was what you teach. So I'm hearing, so I'm seeing both middle and high school. Is there any, oh, and I see one parent. Okay, great. Okay. So, and I can help you with that as well. I think being in middle school, you kind of get that you are bridging between the two. And so I think that's what makes it easier. So I just want to just start out here. Here's a graph for you to look at. And I'm going to ask, like, so in my Pear Deck, I want to know, do you think they're related? And can you share some of the variables you notice? So this is for the parent of the first grader in kindergarten. Please don't be intimidated by this. There's simpler graphs to look at. This is more for you. Okay, so I want you to, if you could put your hat on rather than your child's hat on, I will help you, I can walk you through a younger age group. But so I'm gonna ask if either you can chat or just tell me if you think they're related and what variables you might see. Anybody? So the variables might be the years. Okay, so we see years here. We see it says launches over here, and we see degrees, but it's a little bit vague, right? So we don't really know what it is, right? The degrees could be degrees of separation. It might be temperature. Launches, who the heck knows what that is? There's a high correlation rate, okay? And so we look at it, we think, oh, do you think there's a correlation? And then we find out that it is worldwide commercial space launches and the number of sociology doctorates awarded. And you go, wait a second, they have nothing. How could they have anything to do with each other? So we're looking at a graph made by where it looks like it's related and it's not at all. Here's another one. And this is by spurious correlations. If you get this website, it's amazing. So you look at this graph, you go, oh, look at that. It looks like there's a huge correlation. Again, you have years over here. You don't know what the years are counting. You have numbers here, but you don't know what it is. And then you have the years. And maybe at the very end, they kind of go separate. And you're thinking, yeah, but man, that looks like that's even a higher correlation rate. And then you find out it's the age of Miss America correlating with murders by steam, hot vapors, and hot objects. And you're like, holy smokes, they have nothing to do with each other. So you can make a graph and show data. This is correct data, but do they really have anything to do with each other? And it's like learning how to discern and kind of figure out what has to do with what, and if they do at all. Here's something a little more real, okay? So you have global warming. This actually came out, you can ignore this because this was for the Pear Deck. You can actually, this actually came out, it was going all over Facebook. The claim was global warming is a hoax. The ice cap is actually growing. It's not shrinking. So here it's 2012, and it's much smaller than 2013. That's our evidence. It's 60% growth in 1 year. And so they came up with the reasoning saying, that this is actually, and just so you know, the source is NASA. It's like a genuine, authentic source. And yet, so they're saying climate change is not real. And so there's asking, like, what the heck is going on here? Holy smokes. And then if you look longer term at the ice cap, you can see that actually over a long term, the ice cap has decreased immensely. So you really understanding data, looking at data, how to use it and how people abuse it is, critical thinking is all the kind of the tools we want to give our students. Like, how do we get them to critically think about all this mass information we're getting? We have so much data coming at us at this point. It can be incredibly confusing. And as you've seen, we've had a lot of very contrasting information coming at us, and how do we figure that out for ourselves? So it's really important that we learn how to look at primary data to figure out what's going on. And it's an incredible skill set. So if you look at, here's some real headlines, Idaho, actually, you're in Idaho. Idaho stripped climate change from the school guideline. Now it's a battle. What does this all mean? And here you have, the politics of climate change. So how do we help our students kind of wade through this all? And so you want to look at data and you're like, oh my goodness, how do we see patterns in all these numbers? They usually come in graphs, and you're like, oh my goodness, how can anyone do this? And only someone professional can do this. But your students can learn to do this. And if you haven't done this already, and learning how to graph is really an important skill set to kind of make pictures of data. That's what a graph is. It's a picture showing data to help us understand data. Because otherwise, if you look at this, unless you're like some, amazing, person, you won't see the pattern, or it's really hard to see the pattern. So these graphs are really, really important in terms of finding how it works, right? So, here's a great illustration of this. So if you were one of my students, I'd make you read this right now. Sorry, Lynn? Oh, I actually want to ask, is the beekeeper? Yeah, I was just thinking, no, it's not. But the parent of the first and third graders, you probably remember this book because you might be still reading it. But Harold took a walk in the moonlight. There wasn't a moon, and therefore he drew one. He drew a straight path to walk on. Harold walked with his big purple crayon. However, he didn't seem to be getting anywhere after a while. You're like, this doesn't make much sense. But with an illustration, it becomes a famous best-selling children's book. So if you can think of the words as your data table and your illustrations as, a way to kind of show your words, it's kind of the same idea. And so obviously some graphs are better than others. Like you saw the spurious, that was nonsense. But if you look at this is really hard to read. Maybe there's a different way we could show this. So you have choices in how to kind of show a graph. So this is a great illustration. We all know this one. If you grew up in the United States, this is I don't know how you can not know this one, but I'm just trying to say that that you have good ways of seeing things. There are some graphs that are better than others. There are some illustrations that are better than others. But again, we see data in a table, and we can try to make sense of it. And so if you look at this, this is actually a graph, and this is not for my first grade family, okay? So please hang in there with me, okay? But this shows you, you can see this is dissolved oxygen. This is photosynthesis happening at the peak, and then dissolved oxygen seems to happen right afterwards. And this is high and low tides. So you can kind of see that, you can start to see some patterns and interpret what's going on here. And when you see the kid's light bulb go off and start seeing the picture and go, oh, I get it. It's a beautiful moment. So as Neil deGrasse Tyson, data, this good thing about science is it's true whether you believe it or not. And so we want to figure out how to make a picture with our data so we can understand it. And so that's what I'm going to try to work. I want to just do some quick practice with you, because I think that that's what Data Jam is all about. Okay, so if we go back to our data collection here, I'm just going to open this up. If anyone has any questions, please chime in. I don't have a problem with you asking. Thank you for sharing. And actually, I would love to hear if anyone has used Google Sheets, or Google Sheets to do graphing before. Is anyone?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna forgive me. So there's different ways to do this, but I think I want to do real simple graphing for right now. But if you, so this is something you can learn to do, and I'll be totally honest with you. I have to relearn it every year. I don't say relearn it, but I have to kind of review, and they change things up a little bit. But you can actually easily make a graph by selecting, like I'm going to select what I have here. And I think, and so I selected it. I can make a chart with it. And in this case, I think it really should be a pie graph. So I see what happened. So it's not going to show because I don't have it next to each other. So what we can do here is I'm just going to move this up. And actually, so I noticed that they've changed some of this so that we'll see what happens. You don't have to use a computer for younger children, but you could easily just make a pie graph showing, this is, I would say, here's a pie graph, and you can easily go like, this didn't turn out the right color, but you could customize it, go to your pie slice and make your red become red, right? You can, burgundy, we can make, so I can change my color to burgundy if you want to make it all, perfect. And suddenly I find out what the favorite colors are in this group. Okay. Look at that. So we have 3 greens. So really these should be together. And the reason they're separate is just, I think, probably because of the capital spelling. So really all 3 of these would be green. And we can see that the favorite color of this webinar is green, right? And so here you have you made your graph, you collected your data, you made a graph. Oh, thank you. Is that you, Ashley? Thank you. And suddenly you have a visual of what's going on in our group. So that might be the best graph for that kind of information. But you can also, like, who has 21? Who has 21 pets? Oh my goodness. So this is not lined up, so it won't necessarily work. But with this one, obviously, I think that it would be better to make a bar graph. And so you can actually go to set up and change your bar graph. Would anyone like me to do that, or do you feel like that's not necessary? I'm happy to do it. I don't have to do it.
Go for it.
Go for it? Okay. So it's interesting. A lot of you do not have, oh, thank you. Ashley, you're hired. So again, all you have to do is go, if you pick the title, you just drag down, select your column. You can, again, you select it, you go to insert, you make a chart. And so now, so I don't think I like a pie graph for this. I think I would see how it goes over here. I can make a bar graph. And then suddenly you have a bar graph. You have several people with 0. But you can also show a graph that way. Which graph works best for you? There's not a right answer necessarily. Some graphs work better than others for what you want to look at. If you want a more complicated graph where you show a line graph, time and day and temperature, you can make a line graph where you have 2 variables. And again, insert, chart. It's really fun once you figure out that you can do this. See, they made a bar graph. I want to see what it looks like as a line graph. So you can see that the temperature over the week went up, and then it went down the 7th day. So this is the way that you kind of start playing around with it. I would say that my experience is I tend to be a little messy in terms of kind of finding things with my students. I think that it is messy at first, but it's also part of the process. And I would love to touch upon questions about how to mentally prepare your students for Data Jam, because I think that's really important. Right, so here's just different kinds of graphs. So in terms of Data Jam, it is I would say it's a long-term relationship. If you're working with seniors, Dave, sounds like, I don't know which kind of students you're working with. I know of teachers who kind of say, you have a week or 2 to do this, work in teams, let's go, boom, and they can do it. I take 2 months to work with students. I know people who take 3 months to work with students. So it really depends on your students, if you're making it required versus voluntary. And I'm not counting out the parent. So please, so we can talk strategies with you too. So, but the thing is, when you set up, and Ashley, you need to tell me also what you're covered and what I don't want to repeat something either.
Oh no, you're doing great.
Okay. Yeah. So what's awesome about Data Jam is that you're using both sides of your brain. You have the students that naturally love to look at data sets and can analyze things and look up data or look up information and kind of figure out a story behind a data. You have students who are just more creative and can't do that, or it's not, I don't want to say they can't, it's just harder. So teaming up is a great way to think about doing this. You will find that the longer term projects, you will have kids, there can be bickering, there can be all kinds of dynamics that comes with the territory. You can, so kind of being able to work with groups individually and kind of work that through is really important. Working individually, you might have a kid who's really good at one and not the other, and then he or she gets stuck. I've had 2 students working on, I had 1 student completely stuck, and then I had this one come in at the tail end and do the creative component of this, and they did a fantastic job, which I'll show you later on. So there's all kinds of ways to kind of tackle Data Jam. I like to say tackle because it's like wrapping your head around it. Once you wrap your head around it and experience it, it kind of makes sense, but getting there can take a little time, okay? So I did talk about working with one group, working in a group work versus working individually. And I want to, actually, should we, this is from before. I haven't, do you want, I'd like to know if people have looked at the data sets or not, a little bit. Do you have any questions about, is there anything any questions that I can help you think about? I like to get a sense of what you would like to hear so I can help best support you with this and what would be helpful. I know, Sean. Any questions? Or should I I'm very good at talking. I'll keep on talking.
I have a question.
Sure.
Because so I'm all the way in Maine. I mean, this isn't restricted to a certain part of the country like New York State, is it?
Guess what, Dave? I have a student in Berkeley, California doing this right now.
Awesome.
I got permission. So
Very
you
cool. Actually, yeah. Good. So I guess, do we use data sets that are provided on the site?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, and they have different levels. So there's 3 different levels. Kids will want to gravitate to the 3rd level because they think, ooh, I'll have a better chance of winning. I steer clear of that. I would you want that. We've had students who are level 1, so they have 3 levels, level 1 being the simplest, who win the overall prize because they just did a fantastic job. So you might, there's going to be more kids, and Shelley can speak to this as well. There's probably more kids in level 1, so there's probably more competition. You get a prize for each level. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I don't know what's motivating you to do this, whether it's just the project itself, or I mean, if you want your kids to buy in, I don't know how you're presenting this to your students, but if it's a monetary, motivation, then you really want to make sure that they stick to something that they're really interested in, rather than something that's just complicated for complicated sake. Does that make sense?
Yep. Great.
Okay. And there is an amazing, the resource, I don't know if it's on this, I think this is just the data sets, but the rubric is a very good guidance to help your students, because it tells you exactly what each section of the project is required, and they'll give you examples. So if you look under important documents, or is it contest essentials? I have to remember. No, important documents. If you go to the, there's a report form, which kind of, that's where the kids will put their information. See, here's the family data one. So that's different than the student one. And the judging rubric, I love. I would just make copies of that because it just succinctly, look at this. It tells you what they want. The report includes a title, the names of the students, grade, school name, and then how it should look. Report is typed in a readable font, and it tells you exactly what they want from each one. Introduction include the background information. So it just kind of gives you the 10 sections that you need. Now, when I say 10, it's like, no, that freaks you out. Don't worry about it. For example, number 4 is the graphs. Number 5 is you explaining what the graphs mean to you. I would say probably this might be the most challenging one. Number 8 is a reference list. So you can see that, numbers 10 is a reflection. It just tells you exactly what they want. And they even give you examples of what they're looking for. So this is a really nice way for the kids to see exactly what's expected. You can lay it out for them to say, I want you to get number 1 and 2 done this week. This is after they choose a project. So you want them to look at the data sets first and pick something they can glom onto.
And Miriam, can I chime in real quick?
Yes, please do. Because I can,
Yeah, for those who are planning on doing family data jam or have younger, like elementary aged children, our family data jam doesn't require that extensive report. So it's more of a summary of what you and your children have discovered in the data, in addition to the creative project, but you're not required to do that huge report. So that's all.
yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. Shelly, I wanted to show, Shelly's familiar. I have some links. I'm sure you can look online from some past projects. So I don't know if you want me to show this to you. But the creative part is only half of the projects. The written part is just as important, if not more. So you want to find that balance. But anyway, I actually have cried watching some of these, just like emotionally, because I'm just so blown away but what kids end up doing with their projects. So anyway, I don't know, like I'd love to hear from you. Like, I'm very impressed that I have talked this much. So it's just, and I want to make sure that I'm kind of like helping you think about this to see how you'd like to tackle data jam. And so is there anything that you would like to hear from me that I haven't touched on? Yeah, Amelia.
I would love to hear about like building a team. And I know when you did it as a club. I wonder like how you manage time and how you spaced out meetings, that sort of thing, like the logistics of getting started.
Right, I know. So what I did was, I'm a little embarrassed. So I decided I have done it both ways. I've made it a requirement, and I've also done it as voluntarily. And so I would bring donuts, and say, come to find out about data jam. I'm a very good briber. I'm not proud of it, but I would get them to come. And then I would and then also tell them, we've had quite a few kids from Oakwood win. And so I obviously that they shouldn't do for that reason, but of course that it does help to kind of get them to buy in. And also for high school, oh my gosh, getting something from Carey Institute on your resume is huge. They really learn how to do data analysis. I mean, they really come away with some amazing skill sets. So in terms of I've even had Shelly, who's here, come and kind of do an introduction where we try to get them to look at one small data set and find out, kind of figure out what the story is, and then have them make like a mini creative skit or something. It's not easy to do. It's a lot to do in an afternoon. So what I would do is have them try to look, I would show them past videos of student work to kind of show them how cool the projects were. I would also then have them look at the different data sets to see which stories look the most interesting. And then I would also try to work with them individually, because I found that when I was trying to work with them as a group, it was overwhelming. Yeah. So, and then try to kind of help them, try not to have them be free to think about looking around, like going into one and saying, I like this, and then going, oh no, I don't think so, let's try this one. And so that was the first thing, is trying to help them find something that they were interested in one of the data sets, and that it was appropriately leveled. Yeah. So anyway, and then
sorry, Miriam. I'm going to drop in the chat the link to the other webinars. For those of you who weren't able to attend last Tuesday, we had a teacher, Karen Bodner, from the Westchester area, and the focus of her webinar was really going step by step through like structuring things for students over a few months. So that might be helpful for some of you too.
Let me say, I worked with Karen, I talked with Karen, and she's phenomenal. Like I was just blown away by her way of kind of systematically kind of setting it out for students as classes. She's in a different school district, but it was really neat to hear how she did it, Amelia, which was definitely different than the way I did it. So it definitely is worth looking at how she tackled it. Yeah. Anyway, any other questions? But you're right that it's kind of like, how do you it's like a monster, and you're looking at it and you're like, holy smokes, right? How do I even start? And so it's kind of like looking at the videos, looking at their peers, right? Buying the donuts. No, you don't have to do that. Looking at their peers' work, showing that it is doable. And then I lost my train of thought, but it will come back to me. It's like I just all of a sudden just blanked out. I've been teaching all day. So I know what it is. That when they start off on this project, they should think they have never been married before, and some of you have never been married before, but I see it as a marriage. There are some highs and lows, and you go in, you're all excited, and then you come into a wall and you're like, you fall apart. And I think just emotionally setting them up so that they know that there's these exciting moments, and then there's these walls, and then you kind of push past the walls and you get to the next level, and it's a happy long marriage. It does help to kind of let the kids know that it's like a long-term project, and you will not finish in a second. And that's really important for them to know, that they just mentally have to prepare themselves that this is also I do CrossFit. And there's these workouts called chip away, where you just chip away at the workout because it's so overwhelming at first. So you just chip away at it. So that's really important to think about as well. So just kind of, it does help so that they just kind of can ride the wave, so to speak. Yeah. And a lot of nudging. Yeah. I'm good at that. I'm happy to, listen, I know about silent waiting for questions, so I can do that. But if there's no more questions, that's fine too. And I don't know actually, but go ahead, Dave.
Miriam, I have another question. So this is kind of me probably totally being clueless about things, but it's probably on the website and everything. Like, as far as the season goes, I mean, is there a deadline that we submit our?
Yes. Yes. So I don't know what it is. What is it, Ashley? End of April?
So April 16th is our registration deadline. And there you go. Yeah, for registrations and also getting consent forms for students. So we need to have consent forms for all students who are participating so we can judge their projects. And then the final project submission deadline is April 30th, and then we do the award ceremony May 21st. And so in between April 30th and May 21st, all the projects are being judged by educators, scientists, and artists. So teams of 3 are judging each and every project.
And are the data sets available now?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. You want me? I can just quickly show you. If you go, which I'm trying to think which one that was on here. Oh, I didn't make it a link. But here you go. Oops, and it's not. Let me just. I can just quickly go to. I actually think it's on one of my most. Yeah, look at that. It's right there. So this is the link, and actually I can put it in the chat, but you can look it up as well. But so actually I'll walk you through it really fast, Dave. So if you go down, you can see see how it says data sets. Yeah. Here's everything you want to know. And I'll show you. And it's actually, you'll find there's ones on eel, believe it or not. And I know eel are a big deal in Maine. But you can see how here's the different levels. Okay. You can filter it. So there's, I don't know how many data sets there are, but actually there's your eel. I didn't like the eel data set, but personally, sorry. I don't recommend it. But that's my personal opinion. There's no, it's glamorous and then there's no real story. And it's just really frustrating, but that's just
Yeah.
me.
And Miriam, on while we're on the subject of data sets, on Thursday, Shelley Forster, she's going to be leading our webinar, and she's going to be actually diving into this data set right here. Looking at, yeah, so we're going to be working through a sample data set and practicing graphing and analyzing, looking at trends. So we're kind of going to be going step by step. So if you're interested in building upon Miriam's webinar tonight, you should totally register and join this Thursday.
Yeah. So you can see there's these 6 birds, that they follow their Julian date, which is when they first arrived. Sorry, I'm not going to take away your thunders, Shelley. But the Julian, this is a cool story though. I love this story. The bird migration when they first arrive, and they've been doing it since 1887. And how it's changed over the time. And there's 6 birds they fall. I'll stop, Shelley. I'm sorry. I'm so bad. I kind of get excited and then I kind of forget that. Anyway, but they have things on PCBs. On the Hudson River. They have the deer tick, which is really, the deer tick story is really cool. That's I would say one of the more exciting. I think that's an exciting data set, but even the PCBs are really, let's go back to the PCB story is really good. They have salts in the groundwater from road salts. You can see temperature changes, dissolved oxygen with the, I think that has to do with some invasive species like the water chestnut. I have a student right now who's doing the hurricane impacts on the Hudson River tributary, but I can see some of these maybe, working for you in Maine. Pharmaceuticals found in the Hudson River. Kids have had fun with this one. This is this is a really interesting one because it's long term, and you can see the trend. And if you remember when the Clean Water Act happened, you'll see a little correlation here as the kids research fecal coliform, which is poop, and how when Clean Water Act was enacted, how it dropped in some places. So it's fun because if you tell the kids, Amelia, that it's like CSI, it's like you're a sleuth, like you're here to figure out what happened, that's a really fun way to think about it as well. So you see the fecal coliform dipping. You can pick one little part of it. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can say, what happened between the years 1960 and 1980? Why is it like going up, 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 and then going down? And they have to research what happened to the Hudson River during that time. And you might find some background research, information that helps them figure out what's going on. So that's my other way of kind of to hooking them in, is that it's a CS, you're a sleuth. And it's fun, and it's okay if you're not quite right. You just have to kind of justify why you think that happened. So I have a student right now, but I have to be careful. I have to protect my student because I'm a little competitive. But she's looking at Hurricane Floyd and why the flooding was so bad during Hurricane Floyd in the Hudson Valley. I'm not giving it away, but she's doing the background information. And the eels are totally fascinating. I just found that the data doesn't give anything really solid, and I think that it's a little frustrating because the kids get into it, and then they find out there's no real story. They're not really sure what's going on. But the eel story itself is totally cool. their whole migration and how they live in freshwater. Dave, that might be interesting for you, just because Maine is such an eel,
Yeah.
it's big industry there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we're on the coast too, so that's perfect because people, I know people who fish for eels in the spring, the glass eels, they try to get them.
Yeah. So, and there's some great videos that kind of tell the story and how they have research on, like somebody was able to publish, even though like they tagged them and they were able to publish their findings on just one or two eel, because they can't figure out where they're spawning, I guess. And because there's such a mystery, like they were able to publish a paper based on like only one or two eels making it back or something. Yeah, so it's kind of I'm, for lack of a better word, I know I'm in a webinar, it's kind of a sexy story, but the data doesn't tend to be, the data was just, I don't know. I just got a little frustrated with the data, but anyway, that's just
And
me.
so, can I ask one more question?
Yeah, you can ask as many as you like.
Okay, thanks. You talk about like different students doing different projects. Can they submit them individual sort of submissions?
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually have most of my students do it individual. I'm a kind of, I had the luxury of working at a really small school, so it was easier for me to do that. I think if I was working with I'm in a bigger school now, so it's more challenging that way. Although because it's, because we're all remote, I'm just as an experimental year for me to try this out in California. So I'm doing it individually, but I've seen some, and Shelley has a more kind of more global picture of this. Just seeing some of these group projects is pretty powerful. And yeah, so she could speak more to that as well. I'm sorry, Shelley, I'm putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, sure. I think it really depends on your students and how you want to teach. Some students are really successful working on their own. 3 seems to be a magic group size that a lot of teachers pick, but then we've also seen whole classes do a project together, which can be really powerful.
Are the data sets available like all throughout the year? I mean, they're all there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So some students they probably were working on this all year long, maybe, right? Potentially.
Shelley, have you had that happen?
Yeah, the students, what school are they? Marymount, they start in September because it works better with their curriculum.
Okay.
So you can work all year long, but the other thing I would add is that you can use these data sets in your lessons outside of Data Jam too, right? Like we love Data Jam and we think it's a great experience, but if you want to just plug a data set about ticks into one day's lesson, like that's a great way to build them into your curriculum.
And I think one of the things that I'm starting to do more and more is teaching kids graphing earlier in the year, for other reasons, just to kind of like just make the learning curve like not such a big leap for them. They, oh, I've done this before, and it's also they should be doing that anyway. So that helps as well. But I found though also, yeah, so as Shelley said, if you do it separate for other reasons, that's one thing. But I think if you're going to do this project, I found that like all things in, when you're teaching, you have your window and then it closes. Like you had them and then it's like windows closed and they're done with this. Like, I don't know. It's different maybe with the COVID year, but I found that you have to be really careful. I found that I want to keep them emotionally in. And if I make it too long, then I can lose them as well. Yeah. So it's that dance that we all teachers do.
Are there new data sets available every year kind of thing? Or are some added every year or not necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, with COVID, there's been like a slowdown, but Shelley, actually, you should answer this.
I'm gonna have Ashley answer.
I can give.
The short answer is that yes, sometimes, on some years there are new data sets added, and sometimes like this past year there were not. But what we're also working at each year is updating the data sets that are already there as well. So if we get new data for like the Lyme disease data set or something, like we are able to update that each year. So that is a fairly large project to be updating them every year, but it is something that we work on, and new data sets are always really exciting to add as well.
Yeah, I think, and also you've cleaned up some data sets,
Mhm.
so they're easier. Yeah, 'cause some of them are a little messy.
Yeah, and you've been really helpful with that feedback, Miriam, of letting the carry team know that a certain data set was really hard with students, and then we looked at it again and either made it better for students or took it away. So I know the carry team really, really appreciates feedback from teachers.
Yeah.
How many data sets are there?
I'm just looking.
Are
There's
there, Shelly, are there like 40, over 40?
Oh, wow.
Somewhere around 45, yeah.
wow. I didn't even know that. I just like, and you know what you can do, Dave, which is really fun? You can take two data sets and marry them.
Ooh.
So like, what did my students do? They did something with the birds and with the temperatures over the last 100 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's
So even though the bird migration was just about when they would arrive, they looked also at the rising temperatures over the last 100 years.
And so they actually would submit their project based on those two data sets kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's no rule against that, for example.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah, no, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing resource. Yeah, like you say, just to have the access to this kind of data and this awesome, rich, I don't know.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah, and the fish are totally cool too with the PCBs and like you find out like with the striped bass how there's a difference between the male and the female with
Okay.
with the biomagnification, and like it's like you find out, the kids find out about how the stripe, I think it's the male that go out or the female. The females go out, they don't stay, but the males stick around. So I think they have higher levels of PCBs in their system than the female that go out to sea to mate. Yeah, so they find out, that's the sleuth part where they find out this, or they see that there's a difference. Like that might be, they just kind of focus in on the striped bass and suddenly they see this difference, and why is that? Or they see another fish that is growing in population while other ones aren't, and why is that? I'm not going to give it away, but but it's really neat, and they find out things that I don't think necessarily the scientists have looked at. You know, sometimes that's what I've experienced. The zebra mussel population is really interesting too. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are really. I had a student do the storm impact water chemistry. This was neat. This had to do with the road salts. This one was, I think, a little challenging. Yeah, I mean, I could tell you a little bit about many of them that with my students. But again, Dave, I'm working mostly with middle school, some with high school. Yeah, I think this one was with a high school student, this road salt one, salt pollution.
So are the data sets like just the data, like a table of
Right,
data?
I'm glad you asked that. Do you see how it says saltwater? There's a data set, right?
Okay, yeah.
And then here's the metadata. So
Okay.
what I would say, actually, Amelia, back to your question, I would have them read the metadata, read the background, see if that's something that they're interested in. The additional resources, totally look at that because somebody's, I mean, actually, I may have been me, where we had to, looking for background information for students to kind of find out what the story is really important. I would even, they have lessons, unit on salt pollution. I actually, for my student who's doing it on Hurricane Floyd, I told her to do the lesson that's in there because it helps give her an idea of what they were wanting students to look for. It's kind of like cheating a little. That's not cheating, but it's like, it's, they're trying to uncover what's going on using their sources. Oh, okay. Oh, that's neat, Amelia. Did it go well? You broke your class into 2 groups?
Yeah, or no, in groups of 2. Yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool. It was for a unit on just like data interpretation and
Uh-huh.
graphing
Oh,
in
that's
ecology. Yeah, and I mean, I could share even the resources I put together for it. if
Oh,
anyone-
that'd be great. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
That's neat. Yeah, I've always looked at like it's like Karen, who did the webinar last week, she's seems like a very organized, sequential kind of, she kind of has a big picture, knows how to break it down. And that's not me. Like, I have to kind of stumble a few times before I get there. I'm just being honest with you. Once I get there, but it's like she kind of really had a nice way of breaking it down. So if you get a chance to listen to her, talk to her, I think it's totally helpful. And then Kate up in Pine Plains is really good as well, who teaches middle school science. So anyway,
Great. Yep. This sounds fun.
Yeah, it is. It's incredibly gratifying. Like I said, I feel like I'm a better teacher for it. Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're getting close to closing up our hour of time together, but Miriam, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation.
My pleasure.
And let's see. Sorry, I'm looking at questions in the chat.
Did you, Ashley, did you record?
Yes, I have been recording. Yes. And so this webinar will be posted to our website probably tomorrow. And on the topic of webinars, again, we have Shelly, who you saw earlier. She's going to be leading us through a great webinar on Thursday to really dig into practicing and manipulating data. And then next week, I'm excited because we have 2 art-oriented webinars. So on Tuesday, we have like how to create a science story, using art, where our guest speaker is Bowie Zunino from a local artist residency, the Let's Say It project. She'll be joining us. And then the following Thursday, we have David Wong joining us from the Art Effect in Poughkeepsie, and he'll be focusing on infographics. And these 2 might be particularly good for students to attend. So if you want to share that information with your students, they are welcome to join. And then, and yeah, all of our, I think I shared it earlier. I'll share it one more time, but this link will give you all the information for all of the webinars that you can still, I'm really bad at multitasking on here, that you can still register for. So also, if you have any questions about Data Jam, you are welcome to get in touch with me too. I'm happy to email or set up a call with you, and also meet with your students if that is something that would be helpful. So with that, thanks so much everyone for coming, and I hope to see you again.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.